Alright, welcome back to the garage. Dave here, Stances Everything, and we're going to pick up where we left off last time and get my running boards to fit properly to my fenders, which have been pushed out because I'm going to widen them ½ an inch. And because I do take feedback from everyone who comments, I'm going to overlay what I'm saying over some working footage to combine the two, shorten the videos up a bit, and put a little bit more action in them. So the first place that I started was obviously taking off the running board. I was able to get the running board off. It's a bit fiddly to do so. And after, fighting with the various bolt sizes and just getting it off, getting the filler piece off, all that jazz, I do now have the running board off and loose so I can figure out where it's going to fit. So if you look here, the board is loose now and I've angled it out a little bit. You really can't tell that it's angled out much at all, really. Open the door, you can see a little bit there, but that's not too bad, honestly. And even flushing it up there, it doesn't look terrible. So I'm not really going to, I was thinking that I would actually have to split it somewhere here and splay it out. I think I'm just going to go with having it kick out a little bit, and I would much rather it line up there and look good than really worry about what it looks like with the door open. And again, as long as it's flush with the rocker panel, I'm a-okay. However, what I have realized is it's not butting up against here nicely, and it looks like I need to kind of massage this area a bit. Probably just got bent over the years. And then I might have to knock this down just slightly or kind of reshape it. Again, nothing that's too crazy to do. And then finally, I think we'll have some sort of a gasket in here once I get everything tucked in a little bit more. And that should look a lot better than it was. These are supposed to flow together, and you can see now that that's a nice gap compared to what it was before. Unfortunately, that does mean that I do have to modify where these mount a little bit because I have adjusted it. I'm not 100% sure yet how I'm going to do that. First, I want to get this reshaped, put into place, and then we can get under the truck and figure out what modifications I have to do. Before I do that, I'll just show you how it all mounts. Mounting for these is pretty simple. You've got your 3 running board mounts. Unfortunately, in my case, I thought these were all pretty self-explanatory, but I think I might have this one might actually be for the other side. This one might go where that one is. Everything is specific location. I didn't know that before I put these back on the truck or took them off the first time, so shame on me, but I will be able to sort this out, no problem. You're probably wondering why I don't take these off and flip them around. I modified this one for the brake line to go through. If you look under there, really hard to see, I know. My e-brake cable goes through there. And then finally, this one is underneath a cab mount. So these are going to stay where they are, and we're going to modify the mounts on the running boards themselves. Now, looking at this one, now that I see it, I'm going to have no problem cutting these welds. I made this one and knocking it off. And then really, I just have to modify this middle one, which I think I'm just going to put another piece of metal similar to that off of this and give me a little bit more adjustment. At least that's what I'm thinking now. But the first step is going to be modifying the end there to make sure that it tucks up nicely. So to do that, we're going to head back over there where I have more light, more space, and we're going to hop to it. So I've been hammering away doing my thing, and I was able to get this to fit a lot better around the fender widened out. Then I realized that obviously someone has done a repair here. They've replaced this end of the running board. Who knows why? The important reason I'm bringing it up is you can see that this comes along straight, and then where it goes here, it actually kinks and goes this way. Looking at it really closely, the welds on this side are actually not super great. With it flipped over, you can see that there's actually a hole here and it's starting to crack. And that might be what was actually causing my issue. And you can see where I was pulling on it here. I'll clean that up a little bit so you won't see it as much. Probably give this a little bit of a light coat of black paint. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut this, bend this end where I need it to be, and then weld it back, and we should be golden. I have minor amounts of body hammering to do up here to get things to fit, but this is actually looking a lot better than I expected. Once I'm done modifying this area, I'm going to go with my angle grinder. I might even do this before. Cut all along here to get these welds off for this piece. You can see that I didn't actually do that great of a job. Like, it definitely holds for what it needs to be, but it also come off really easily. Cut this, and then I can move this, and then really the only mount I have to worry about is this guy right here. And let me show you what I'm going to do to fix this. My approach to fix this piece is going to be very similar to this one, just a different piece of metal I'm going to use. I'm going to weld this alongside it, mark where it needs to be, drill and tap it, and we'll just bolt it from the bottom. These front ones actually lined up pretty well with everything. So I'm going to mount these ones first, do this one second, and that one last, and we should be golden with modifying this. All the modifications should be on the board itself, not any of the running boards, which, you know, isn't too bad all said and done. And I'm actually pretty happy with how quickly it should all come together. Having just said that, that is definitely famous last words, but hopefully this doesn't take too long. This is day one of being on this, and if I can get this all on the mounts today, marked where I need to move everything, and ready to tack in the next time in the garage, I'll consider that a win. So let's get right to it. We're going to cut the running board, cut that mount off, do a little bit more hammering, and then go test fit. All right, you know, in the last cut I said things are looking pretty good and shouldn't take me too long. Famous last words, but we did make some really good progress. Right now I have the running board in the mounts at the front here, not in the mounts at the middle, and there's no mount at the rear. I did end up pulling through one of the welds when I was prying that piece off, so I will have to fix that. But you can see how everything's looking a lot better. The proximity between here and there is quite a bit better at this point. I can definitely, there's a bolt hole that goes in here. When I bolt them together, it'll tighten that up, and I am going to put a gasket between them just so it doesn't squeak. And then the next thing I need to do, actually it's kind of good that this fell, you can see how far off these holes are. I think the best way for me to fix this is, and it's pretty drastic, is just going to be slicing it in the middle. I don't really want to recontour that because that does match pretty well. I don't really want to recontour this end because that does match pretty well. But I think what's happening is because this is moved slightly out, things just aren't lining up. And I think if I cut it in the middle, I should be able to then weld it back together in the spot that it needs to be pretty straight. It is, if I just avoid this mounting thing, so maybe not cut it right in the middle, maybe cut it about here, put all the bolt holes in, all the supports that need to be, and then tack it back together. That's probably going to be my best approach. Hopefully I don't end up ruining this piece, but they're not super expensive, and they are repops. And it's just metal, so I can put it back together, actually. So we're just going to go ahead with that idea for now. The reason I'm saying for now is it's about 12:30 now, and I want to come and attack this again another day after I've had some time to think about it. Between working on every project, I do come out in the garage and just kind of stare at it. I get little pockets of time here and there, you know, when I'm taking out the garbage, when I'm loading up hockey equipment, just to sit and think. And I'm going to do that on this just to make sure that I don't dig myself into a hole. Next cut, we're going to come back. We're definitely going to get the mount sorted out. I did realize that I do have to make one mount a little bit longer than expected. Again, just because the running board kicks out a little bit. So I'll cover that when I come back the next time. We're definitely going to get at least the board mounted in this video, and then maybe we worry about this in another video. But I would really like to get both done, so I'm going to push hard to get that. Even if this section isn't completely metal finished, we'll have everything sort of put together and working well. I am really happy with how this has come together, and it's really looking quite nice compared to what it was before. It couldn't even get that close before. So I think we're pretty good. And actually what I'll probably end up doing is mounting the fender to the board and mounting it up there and just making sure that everything is happy before we go ahead and zap everything together. But anyway, enough talk. We'll come back next round and get this all sorted out. All right, day 2 of getting my running boards to fit. And as you saw in the last one, I said I was going to take a minute and try and think about this a little bit more. And I totally did. I now have this bolted in loosely, mind you, on this bracket, the middle bracket, and actually to the fender back here. And you can see after I did my shaping, I've got a bolt going through there and I've got another one going through there.
It actually fits up way better than I expected it to. And I did that by opening up the holes for the brackets in there instead of actually welding a new bracket on. I do have to weld the one bracket that I put on earlier somewhere in this vicinity. I'm going to mock that up, and then we'll take it over to the table and sort that out. But I'm really happy with how everything's fitting here. You can see that this lines up nicely now. I mean, it's really tight, so I still might just take a little bit out of it. Like if I slice it and just move it forward that little bit, will be pretty good and get a gap in between there, and I think that'll be safe. Once the fender is all the way to the bedside there, it'll line up there where it's supposed to, and everything will mate up nicely. So I'm going to mark now where I need to put this mount. It's over on the table over there, and then we will weld it in and mock everything back up, tighten up the board. It's loose right here now. Tighten up the board to the mount that's under here, remount it to the fender, then mount this piece and figure out where we're going to be, and then we'll kind of be able to get this all sorted out in this video. But I'm really pumped on how it's looking. I honestly didn't expect it to line up this nicely, so I'm pretty stoked for the amount of work that I did.
About to get to my favorite part of any video, which is doing some welding. So I've got to weld this spot here where I corrected things a little bit. I'm probably going to end up putting a clamp in there to keep it straight. I have to re-weld this bracket, which honestly moved such a small amount, it's kind of annoying, but that's fine. And then I have to weld in this area where I modified it and actually pushed this back a bit, just so it would contour the fender a bit more. Again, in the spirit of doing more than talking, I'm going to hop into this welding, and then we're going to put it back onto the truck. And I'm definitely going to make sure, I'm not going to tack this nearly as much as I did last time. Definitely going to fill this hole, but I'm probably going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It should hold it there pretty tight, and I know that I will be going back to do this if everything works out well. This is definitely not the last time that this step is going to be on, so that's why I'm not going to go crazy, because if I do have to move it again, I don't want to go through the hassle that I did before. Again, learning from my mistakes. So, welder on camera somewhere, and let's get this hopefully all tacked together today so we can get it back on the truck. And I've got this running board on now. It's loosely attached everywhere, and by loosely I mean it's actually pretty sturdy, but nothing is bolted down, because the last piece I need to fit is that, and that is the filler piece that goes here. Now in the last clip I said that I might have to actually trim it, but then I realized when I held it firm, tightened it up, it might actually clear. So I'm going to put this together and then get it back into place. So the way that this mounts, obviously there's some bolts here that mount it, and they line up with these bolts here, but then there's also another support that locks in right there, and it's actually really fiddly. So I'm going to put as much of this together. Actually, I want to get new hardware for it, because right now it's all mismatched. I'm going to make sure on my bench that I have hardware that at least matches, so I can use one tool to put it on, and then we're going to bolt this back on, and then fingers crossed, once it's all bolted in correctly, I actually don't need to trim it, which would be amazing. Well, we're coming up on my quitting time tonight. It's about 12:20, and I do have to go to work in the morning, but I have got the step mounted. Step's mounted now, very solid. I was able to get all of the supports in, as you can tell by this bolt for this. There is space through here now, about a flathead screwdriver's width through there, so I think that's going to be okay. This is snug. This is fitting quite a bit, quite good, honestly. I'm really pretty happy with how this looks. Can't wait to get it on the ground and see it from the side. So I'm pumped on that. There's a couple of things I want to snug up before I film this outro, just to make sure everything's jiving and I can actually say that we accomplished this fitment today. One of them being these 2 bolts here, and there's one more to go through there. I just got to go find some hardware, and this is kind of taking up a bunch of time, so I just want to make sure that I come back one more night. Last time I took a little bit of a break, I came back, everything sort of fell together, so I'm definitely going to do that. You can see how I patched this in here. I think with a little bit of black paint and a little bit of faux patinaing, it'll look money once it's all done. Obviously, a lot of this has to come apart. This has to be blue, this all has to be blue, that has to be blue. I've got some body work to do in there. There's a lot left to do, but I'm very happy with how this side of the truck is looking. So we're going to do one more day on this, which is really just going to be a snug up day and me filming an outro. So let's see you in the next cut. Back out here last day on this particular video, and I have got the running board on this side all nice and bolted up. Obviously it looks pretty much identical to the last time you saw it in the video, just everything is tight now as it needs to be. I've tightened it up here. Keep in mind I am going to have a gasket in there. Tighten this up. It doesn't attach at the top, so that's why it flexes there, but the brace is still in. Everything that I did last time is in, it's just tight. So we can call this side good and done. And I actually started to take apart the other side and see what was going on there. So I'm going to go over there and show you kind of where we're at right now. Hit a bit of a roadblock at that side, obviously, so I'll get you guys caught up. Alright, we're on the other side, and you can see that I've got this running board off on the ground now, and I've spent a lot of time looking at this fender. So if you look here, and I'm not really sure how well this is going to show up on camera, but this fender, if you start from this line here, comes down, and then right down at the bottom here, curls under. It shouldn't be curled under. This needs to be at the very least on the same plane, and I'm not really sure what caused this, but it's really not in the right shape, and there's actually a pretty good kink here. You can almost see the line where it all sort of goes wrong. I'm not sure if I did that when I kind of welded what was rotted out here back together. I'll know once I take this side off, which means yes, after bolting this all on, it's got to come off again. I might try and do a little bit of finessing in place, but really to weld it up properly, I'm going to have to take this off. Remember in the last video I said putting a truck together involves a lot of putting it together and taking it apart. This is just another example. Again, I want to get this stuff sorted out, and I've got the time, so I might as well do it now. I might actually go tomorrow to Bill's truck shop and get this lower fender, just so I can see how far off it is from what I have to what I've got. Depending on how things work, that might be the case. I really think that that's probably going to be the best solution for me, is to just see if I can kind of get another one and put it up here, and then, you know, maybe I just replace this bottom section, or maybe I just work on it. I'll probably end up honestly starting to work on it, but I kind of want to just confirm that the bottom of this fender is tweaked, and that's the best way I can think to do it. Once I get this to a nice place, happy place, I have the 2 holes in it, I obviously filled up a hole or it was rotted out, then I can work on this bottom here. You can see that someone's done some work to the bottom of this one. Again, these are all used parts, so none of that is surprising. All that said, I'm not going to be doing this in the garage tonight. I'm going to call this video a wrap and go upstairs and edit it. I did do a little bit of different stuff editing this video, overlaying some time-lapse while I'm talking with some voiceovers underneath it. Do let me know if you like that approach. I'm trying to keep these videos under half an hour or so, try and get into things as quickly as possible and keep it amusing. I don't really think anybody wants to see me work for 45, 50 minutes, an hour, but let me know for sure. Once again, thanks for watching. Thank you very much to everybody who's commenting and giving me some feedback. I try to apply that as best I can into the videos. So give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and tune in for the next one where we go back to figuring out exactly what's going on here.